Ready to unleash your inner sales queen? We are going to dive into this training today. We are coming into the most lucrative time of the year, particularly if you're a service-based business. September is known for sales. Why? Because the kiddies are going back to school. And I don't care what anyone else tells you out there, sales shoot up in September. Then you've got October where people are starting to prep for what's coming because the holiday season is coming, right? Then in November, what do we have? We've got Halloween, we've got Black Friday, we've got Cyber Monday, then we're coming up to Christmas. So there is nobody out there that cannot tell me that the next 4 months are the most lucrative months of the year. But here's something else I know. A lot of people dip in the summer months. And when I say a lot of people, I mean you as a service provider, as a business owner, as a solopreneur, dip during the summer months because you probably have a mindset of people are not buying, or maybe you've taken time off yourself and you just haven't really gone into the depths of sales. But now is when you want to take your foot off the pedal and really go full throttle so that you can unleash your inner sales queen. So for those of you that don't know me and that are new here, hi, I'm Joanne O'Halloran, and I'm a business mentor specifically for coaches who want to accelerate their audience, accelerate their authority, and ignite their income. So I know firsthand what it's like to be stagnant in sales. It's no secret, right? If you're not new here, you know my story. The first 8 months of my business, I made a total of €2,000. Nobody can live on that. Single parents can't live on that, right? Things change though. And I want to dive in with you today as to why things change, because there's core things. This isn't about me, right? This is about you, but there's core things that I see time and time and time again that service providers are missing out on, specifically coaches, when it comes to actually creating the sales that they want in their business. So I'm going to actually break it down for you today in steps, and I'm going to do visuals. We're going to have a whiteboard. You're going to see my lovely drawings. We're going to have some fun, right? And I'm going to break down exactly how you unleash that inner sales queen, because it isn't actually about the sales that happen. It's about everything that you do in the lead up to the sales so that you can keep that momentum going. I did a 2-hour session with my mastermind clients yesterday. So I have a mastermind that supports coaches that want to be able to scale beyond the consistent 5-6 figure months all the way up. And we look at what's in place for them now and what are the bits that are missing. But yesterday we did like an overview. So like a run through, a review, a recap, reset, whatever you want to call it, of where they're currently at. And it was really interesting to see where the gaps were for everybody, right? So this is so common, right? It's so common. And if you are committed to having those consistent 9, 11, 15 plus K months, this is stuff you've got to pay attention to, because if you're not doubling down on these things, sales is always going to feel hard. And it's not going to matter what I teach you or what anybody else teaches you. It's still going to be hard because the gaps are still going to be the gaps. So I'm going to break it down for you today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my whiteboard. So again, like I said, we're going to see some lovely, lovely drawings from me. You're going to be so proud. Give me 1 second now till I pull it up. Oh, please, while it's loading my word experience. Okay, so while it's loading, what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into the core steps that's needed. So it really doesn't matter, what your sales have been to date. These are still the core things that you get to look at. And as I'm going through this, the questions that I would love for you to think about and to reflect on is, where are you saying, I'm not willing to do this? Where are you saying, oh, I've already tried this? Where are you saying, I don't know if I'm there yet? Like within those 3 questions, where are you saying that? Because they're going to be a direct reflection on your sales. Leadership is a core piece. Like, so when I say leadership, like if you're you're probably thinking about, the corporate world, but leadership for me is how I'm being responsible, how I'm showing up in my life, how I'm showing up in my business, and that the results that I have, that I understand that they're a direct reflection of how I'm showing up and the actions that I'm taking. Because it can be committed, but if you're committed without committed action, it doesn't matter. And if you're in action but it's conditional because you're not actually committed, same thing's going to happen, right? So let's break it down. Okay, so I'm going to pull out my my little pen and I'm going to draw. I'm like, I should win a prize for this, okay? Okay, So this is the worst looking funnel ever, okay? But in here is what we're going to call leads. And yes, you get to see my lovely writing. So we're going to call this leads. I'm going to call this nurture. And we're going to call this sales, okay? So leads is always the biggest part. So when you think of a funnel, most people go, oh my God, I don't like tech. I don't want to do funnels. Let that piece go, because to be honest with you, it doesn't matter. I would get you to get a piece of paper and just draw it out, right? Because what you really want to look at is the size. So leads is going to take up the biggest amount of time. It's going to be the biggest volume, not necessarily take up the biggest amount of time. Nurturing is the next important thing. And like you're bringing people down so that you're constantly like pulling out who's next in line, who's next, who's ready to go, what client is ready to come over the line. But it starts here. It has to start here where the leads are, because if it's not starting there, then what else is how are you going to have anybody to sell to, right? You're not. But what most people focus on is like, I call them fast cash or fast action strategies, where it's like, how can I get somebody now? So like at the start of the month, and see if this is you, right? At the start of the month, you might get super excited, right? About, this month, I'm definitely going to, sign 5 clients, or I'm definitely going to make it a 10K month. And then you get to the 16th of the month and you're like, oh shit, I haven't had any sales. Nothing's working. You go into panic mode, and you may even just throw all your toys out of the pram and just forget about the month and move on to the next month. So let me know in the comments if this is you. And it's not to say there's something wrong. It's to bring awareness to this so that you can see what your pattern is and how you're showing up in your business for your business. So leads is the biggest one, because it requires a lot in here, because in here, you're going to have cold leads, you're going to have warm leads. Look at that for writing. You're going to have warm leads, and you're going to have hot leads, okay? So these are the ones that buy. But you're going to get all 3 of them when it comes to leads. So let's break it down even further. What goes into leads? I'm going to change this to text because we'll be here all day. Okay. So my favorite way to bring in leads is summits, right? Like, so collabs, live series. So they can be on Instagram, they could be on YouTube, they could be, TikTok, they could be LinkedIn, just live series where you're going live with somebody else. Then you have like your generic social media. So if you're doing reels on Instagram, if you are like reels with calls to actions, if you're doing posts and they're being put up on they're being shown to other people on stories, things like that. Anything that you're doing that's going to bring people into you is a way to generate leads. But not all leads are equal. And it's so important that you know this, because just because somebody is a follower on social media doesn't mean that they're actually going to end up coming in to work with you. And I think it's really important to know that. There's a lot of emphasis on social media out there. But if you look at the social media gurus, they're all selling by email. So they're doing both, don't get me wrong, because you do get to have both. But email is super important. So it's also your email list, right? Because you have control over your email list, but you don't have control over your social media. But I think social media is a phenomenal gateway for people to actually get to know you. So these are just some ways that you could generate leads. Networking events. What else could you do? You could have stands, be guest expert. Like there's so many ways to be able to generate leads, okay? But this is going to take time. So every month you should have new actual leads coming in that fit into the warm and hot category. So like if you look at what you're doing right now, how would you categorize your leads? Do you know what they are? And like when I ask this question, to be fair, most people don't. They're like, do you know what? I don't actually know. I'm just putting it out there and hoping that somebody will respond. But what if you reframed it and gone, okay, while I understand I'm going to bring in cold, warm, and hot leads, my attention is going to go on pulling out warm and hot leads, because they're the ones that are ultimately going to, move faster along the customer journey to want to buy from you. So this is where your nurturing comes into play. So every month, okay, so I'm going to put it in here. New leads monthly. And I'm not just talking about social media followers. Okay, that's really important. I'm not just talking about social media followers. So they need, like, a lead needs to be somebody that you're having a conversation with that has opted into your email list for something, is actively engaging with what you're doing. That's a lead. Otherwise, they're just a follower, right? So we're not talking about them. But you need to have new leads coming in monthly. So ask yourself right now, is that something that you have? To be fair, most people say no, right? Which is why this, with clients, this is where we start, because if you don't have a system set up to bring in leads monthly, your sales are going to be stagnant, and nobody can change that. Nobody. So if you have stagnant sales right now and you're not focused on lead generation, that's literally telling you what's missing, right? So I would love you to look at your calendar and go, okay, every month, what am I doing to actually generate leads for my business? The next bit then is nurture. So nurture, again, falls into lots of different categories, okay? So it can be your email sequence for your freebie. Don't worry if you don't have these, right? I'm just sharing all the examples with you. So email sequence for your freebie. Again, DM conversations. Connection calls. It can also be new lead magnets. So these are just some examples, right? It's not them all. But, oh, sorry, I'm going to add on some more too, because like lives like this, right? So lives and your content and general copy. Content, copy. So your copy is your social media. Okay, so they are just some of the examples of ways that you can nurture. These are important because if you think about it, you are going to have such a cohort of leads in your atmosphere, right? So you always want to have a social media platform and an email list. You want to have both. Because the way I look at it is that your email is like your email is like your solid community. It's where the people are that know you. They get to see things that other people don't get to see, you know, like they get to receive things first. And then social media is where you get to be social, right? So you get to have the conversations, you get to share a little bit more about you. It's just a different vibe, right? It's a different vibe, but you want to marry them together, because then not only are you creating multiple touch points with people, but they're also getting extra exposure to you, which is important. Okay. So when you think you have such a, let's say you've got 1,000 people in here, right? So let's just say you have 1,000. Let's just say you've got 1,000 people in here, and that they're going to be varied, right? And let's say out of them, you may have 20 that fit into the warm/hot. Okay. And you might be like, oh my God, that sounds so crazy. Like, to think that there's 1,000 people there, but only 20 of them are warm or hot leads. But this is going to, the reason why I'm showing you this is because you want this to stay consistent, okay? Because you're converting them and you're adding more in, converting them and adding more in, converting them and adding more in. But if you're only focused down here and you're not focusing on these, this is never going to happen. So you've got the leads. Now let's look at the nurturing. So nurturing is where you're actually pulling out the warm ones and the hot ones to say, okay, let's think of it like a relationship, right? First date. Okay, first date. And now here is where you're actually having the relationship, right? So it's like, you know, like let's get to know each other and start having conversations with people. And like, again, you can do it through lives like this, but nurturing is really important because it pulls out your warm and your hot leads. And you want it to do that because you want it to flow down. This is why these are called funnels, right? Because you want it to flow down. So you want the flow to be consistent. So for you, look at this, right? If you're bringing in new leads monthly and you have nurturing in, right? You've got nurturing in. So when I say monthly, I'll just give you an example of what I would do monthly. I would be on a collab event / create a collab event every single solitary month. I would never do more than 2 in a month, but every month you'll see it. Like, it's what I'm known for. So you'll see me on it. I'll also do guest expert sessions, and now I do all of these, right? But when I started, it was going live with other people on social media and doing summits in particular. And then that was generating leads. And then to nurture them, I would have emails that I'd send out to them. And then I would invite them to lives like this with me, which I still do because you guys are here, right? So invite them to lives. And then I would go into DM conversations with people. Now, the DM conversations are not those spammy ones, right? And if you're sending these, if they're working for you, great. And if they're not, you can opt to change tactics, okay? Because again, every strategy works, and you get to decide what one is aligned for you. I personally do not like the ones that reach out, the DMs that reach out to people and say, I've got five free tickets for a mastermind. Would you like to come? And there's no, hi Joanne, how's things? How's your daughter? How's your grandkids? Like, they don't even know you. And it's just that generic message. I'm sorry, like, they're just never going to work for me. For me, that's an instant. I don't even have time and energy for it. And they also work, right? People wouldn't be doing them if they didn't work. So when you think of DM conversations, think about what works for you. Do you enjoy that type of messaging? And if you do, then absolutely go ahead and do it. However, if you're like me and you don't, you can still create connected conversations with people. So, you can, like, if you're friends with people on Facebook, or if you're following each other on social media, you can see on their stories if something amazing is happening, and you can get into a connected conversation with somebody. So you want to have the both and conversations with that. So what I mean by that is, not every conversation should be a sales conversation. Yes, you're in business, but relationships matter. Relationships always matter. Like, even if you've ever watched any movies, you've always seen, like, even go back to like the years of Dallas, right, where they'd bring people out for dinner, and it would be a family affair, and people would have, just the chats. It wouldn't always be about business. You want to think of it like that too. It's not always going to be about business, because we're in human to human services, right? We're like, it's human to human contact that we have. Therefore, if you're going to make it all about business, is your client really going to feel seen and heard? Probably not. And if they're going to trust you to support them with the breakthroughs, do they want to feel seen and heard? Of course they do. So having connected conversations is a really great way to be able to move people forward and to pull them forward, because when the time comes to make sales, like, don't get me wrong, during this, like, you will still be making offers for people to come work with you. But when the time comes for you to actually make sales, so let's decide that, you've decided you want to sell 3 spaces on your program this week, whether it be one-to-one or your coaching program. You will now have people, because you know them, right, that you can personally reach out to and say, look, I actually have opened up 3 spaces on my my program, and I instantly thought of you because based on our conversation, X, Y, and Z, you shared that this is where you were at, and I know that this is something that would support you. I would love to invite you in. Would you love to have a conversation about it? So there's nothing like hard about that. There's nothing even salesy about that. It's kind, it's loving, it's caring. But if you were to start those conversations without this in place, it's going to be much more challenging, right? So when it comes to sales, again, let's break it down. There is no reason why 100% of hot leads don't convert to clients. So again, if you're not tracking these, you don't know who's, I'm not interested in those that are cold, right? I'm not interested. Those that are warm and hot, you need to know them so that you know what your conversion rates are going to be like into sales. And then when you're looking at it from a hot point of view, it's the hot ones that you want to be able to convert. But there's no reason why 100% of genuinely hot leads don't convert into clients, right? There's no reason for it. And you get to look at your own sales and how you're approaching it and how you feel about it when it comes to that. So, like, let me give you an example. Obviously an email sequence following a freebie, right? So we want to let people get to know us whenever a freebie comes into place. That's also a sales sequence. And what I see coming up for people in that is like they just pack in way more value than what the freebie ever was into the email sequence and don't sell to the end. The problem with that is that you've given so much for free. Where's the incentive for people to buy from you? Now, I'm all about generosity, right? I'm all about generosity. What I'm teaching you here is exactly what I teach my clients. But you also have to encourage people to take action, because there's always way more that's required, and support and accountability and uplifting and responsibility and, pattern interrupts and all them. It doesn't matter what type of coaching you do, right? They all come into play. That's needed in order to be able to get the results. Like, even me, who's a serious action taker, I hit stumbling blocks. Like, if I did not have my mentor to go, okay, this is where I'm at, and she can instantly see where I get to go, Like I could be sitting in that for weeks. What's the point? Do you know what I mean? So we all need it. But when it comes to the sales, you've got to know where your sales mindset is at. So are you afraid to make offers to people? So do you say things like, I don't want to be pushy. I want them to come to me. When they're ready, they'll come to me. That is not an empowered mindset. That's coming from people pleasing. It's coming from actually being afraid of judgment and being afraid of being rejected. And it's something that's really important for you to work through, because you have to remember, as business owners, our responsibility is to show the people that are actively looking for the solution that you provide how they can have it. If you're not actively showing that to them, how are they going to find it? So is it being pushy, or are you supporting them with it? Like I haven't had one client say to me, from anyone that I've done like that personal invitation to, that it felt salesy. They're all like, it's such a relief to know. Because like sometimes people are sitting that they're embarrassed that they're where they're at and they don't know what to do. And they're just looking for that hand to go, look, I'm here. Here's the offer. Are you coming in? So with all this, when it comes to sales, personal invitations are really important. Are you doing them? Okay. Are you doing them? And how often are you doing them? Because again, these need to be done on a regular basis. With that then, how else are you selling? Are you selling on email? Are you selling on your social media posts? Now, I know some of you are going to be looking at this going, oh my goodness, I'm getting overwhelmed. Don't, because the personal invitations are your conversations. They will probably happen here too, okay? Emails. Your email is king. Like if you're genuinely serious about having a sustainable business, you've got to have email. You've got to have email. Like we've seen what's happening with social media. We've seen where social media has gone down for a day. We still don't know what's happening with TikTok, right? So if you don't have email, what happens if your social media platform goes down? Now, let me also tell you something else about email. With email, you can actively see who's opening your emails. You can see who's clicking on your links, which means that you can create very specific campaigns to people to support them with where they're at. So you can see if people, like take my business, for example. So I have multiple programs. But let's say, if like for my mastermind, I can see if people are clicking on the mastermind, but they're looking at it, but they haven't bought. So they may need an extra bit of support. Okay. So it's not being pushy to them, but I would send like emails to those people and say, look, would you like to hop on a call? I've seen that you're interested in the mastermind. I'm sure you probably have questions. Book in a call with me. You know what I mean? So it's important to know that there are so many benefits of email. And then obviously your social media posts. But these need to be happening all the time. So if I asked you, right, how often weekly are you selling? What would you say to me? And would you say to me that I'm putting them into my social media posts? But then if we look at your engagement rate in your social media posts, are they low? So this is why you want to layer. So I always talk about layering everything that you're doing. And this is why you want to have the layered effect for all of this. Now, I also said to you that I would share with you how two clients had 15K. One had a 15K revenue launch. So it was in sales, not cash, so sales. And then another client had a 15K cash pre-launch. And it is by using this that it was able to occur. So if we take the lady that had the 15K launch, okay, the sales, it was sales, not cash. She had done a audience build. So she does similar audience builds to me. So she does like big audience builds. So she did an audience build. She had continuously been nurturing the audience that she already had. And then she continued to nurture the new people that had come into her. So that by the time she was at her offer, she was already in connected conversations. Therefore, when she reached out to them and said, are you interested in the offer that I've created? They were a yes. So this gets to be a lot easier for you. The person that made the 15K pre-launch was the exact same flow. It was the same flow. She brought them, she did a list build. So she brought them in through an audience build. And then she brought them in through a new lead magnet and had connected conversations, which then brought them into her sales. So it doesn't need to be harder than this. But this is what it gets to look like. So for those of you who are sitting there right now and you're like, oh shit, I don't have any of this in place. Or you're like, yeah, I've tried this before, but it's not working. I want you to ask yourself, within this, what are you unwilling to do? Because that's a good question, right? Because I can't actually means I won't. What are you unwilling to do? And then ask yourself, are you willing to flip that to say, well, I'm willing. I am willing to do this. I want to make it work. I want to see my sales skyrocket for the rest of 2024. And if that's the case, then this needs to be in place. All of this. And even if you've worked, even if you've worked with somebody before and you're like, yeah, but I've heard all this and it hasn't worked. I want you to ask yourself, what out of what they taught you have you not implemented? Because it's rare that, somebody doesn't know what they're talking about when they're teaching it, right? It'd be very, very rare. Because they're normally doing it themselves. And yes, don't get me wrong, there are some people out there that are not honest in what they're doing. But if you've had somebody that's been teaching you something and it hasn't worked for you, I want you to really look at it and ask yourself, what is it that hasn't worked? Have you only done bits of it? Have you leaned in for the coaching when it hasn't worked? And it's not to make you wrong in all this, but it's, if you want something to change going forward, then true honesty, radical honesty is really important so that you can see the results that you want. But look, if this is singing to you and you're like, do you know what, Joanne, this is exactly what I need. Then I have put the call link into the description here. So book a call with me and let's have a chat, because there's no reason why you don't finish out 2024 with a bang. There's absolutely no reason. And if you're like, okay, these are in the gaps for me and I know that I need support, and you want to be in a community where the results like that are being had, then definitely book a call with me and let's have a chat, because we're coming into the most lucrative time of the year. The most lucrative time of the year. This is a time when you get to crush it. Because with all my clients, we also do Black Friday offers. So we create them, we put them out there, and they're so much fun, and the women make great money from it. So if this is something that this is the type of community you want to be involved in, book a call with me and let's have a chat. No more struggle bus for you. Have an amazing day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.